My daughter-in-law shoved me against the Christmas table. "That chair belongs to my mother. Get up from there right now." I fell to the floor in front of the entire family. But what she did not know is that on that very same night, I would change her life forever. When she woke up the next morning, 23 missed calls. The sound of my body hitting the mosaic tile floor was the only thing heard in that living room. Not the Christmas music playing in the background, nor the laughter that had filled my dining room just seconds before. Only the dry thud of my 68 years smashing against the floor that I had chosen myself 40 years ago when Henry and I built this house, brick by brick. Vanessa was standing in front of me wearing that red dress that was far too tight for her. Her eyes burning with rage, her hand still extended from the shove. My hip was on fire. I felt the cold of the floor seeping through my beige skirt, the one I had put on with so much care that morning because I wanted to look good for Christmas dinner, for my Christmas dinner, in my house. "That chair holds the memory of my mother-in-law," Vanessa screamed, pointing at the empty chair at the head of the table. "You cannot just sit there like it is nothing. Get up." If this story hits home for you, subscribe to the channel to keep watching real stories like this one that need to be told. Everyone was staring at me. My brother Ernest had his fork halfway to his mouth, my sister-in-law Betty had eyes as wide as dinner plates, and my young nephews were recording everything with their cell phones because, of course, everything is content now. Susan, my younger sister, dropped her napkin and stood up immediately. But she was the only one. The worst part was not the fall. The worst part was the silence of my son. Ryan was sitting 3 chairs away with his gaze fixed on his plate of honey-glazed ham. The ham that I had been preparing since 5 in the morning, the one that had been his father's favorite, the one he had asked for every Christmas since he was 8 years old. "Mom, don't be dramatic," he said without even looking at me. Vanessa didn't mean to. That was when something inside me broke. It was not my hip, even though it hurt like hell. It was something deeper, something that had been cracking for months and finally gave way on that green tile floor that Henry and I had installed back in 1987. My name is Caroline Stevens, widow of Mr. Miller. I am 68 years old, and this 3-story house in a historic suburb of Ohio, with its garden full of hydrangeas and its kitchen that smells like cinnamon, is mine. Henry and I paid for it by selling everything we had. He worked double shifts at the automotive factory for 15 years. I sold homemade pies and catering orders door to door. When Ryan was born, I carried the baby in a sling while I delivered orders. This house is worth more than $800,000 now, according to the appraiser that Vanessa brought in by accident 2 months ago. $800,000 that she looks at with shark eyes every time she walks through these hallways, that I clean by these walls, that I paint through this garden, that I water every afternoon. But in that moment, lying on the floor in front of 14 people who supposedly loved me, the only thing that mattered was my dignity. And that definitely did not have a price. Susan helped me get up. Her hands were trembling with contained rage. "Caroline, let's get out of here," she whispered to me. But I shook my head. This was my house. I was not going anywhere. I dusted off my skirt. I felt the pain from my hip extending down my leg, but I stood up straight. I looked Vanessa right in the eyes. Those hazel eyes that my son found so beautiful and that I now saw exactly as they were. Calculating, cold, hungry. "You are right," I told her with a calmness I did not know I possessed. "This chair has important memories." Vanessa smiled, believing she had won. Poor little thing, she had no idea. "It is the chair where Henry sat every Christmas," I continued, and my voice did not tremble. "Where he blessed the table, where he gave us his speech about family and gratitude. But Henry is dead, Vanessa. 5 years ago. And I am his wife, the owner of this house, the mother of that man who has not lifted a finger to defend me." The silence was different now, heavy, dense like the gravy that had gone cold on the table. "So sit there yourself if you want," I told her. After all, it seems you've already decided to appropriate everything else." I saw how Ryan lifted his head, finally. I saw the surprise on his face, as if he suddenly remembered that I still existed, that I was not just another piece of furniture in this house that he and his wife had already started to divide up in their minds. I went back to my spot, not in Henry's chair, but in my own chair, the one that had always been mine next to the window from where you can see the lemon tree I planted when Ryan made his first communion. I sat with my back straight even though my hip was screaming at me, and I continued eating dinner. The rest of the night passed in a thick tension. Vanessa did not speak again, neither did Ryan. My brothers tried to make conversation about the weather, about the nephews, about anything that was not the elephant in the room, that they had just witnessed my daughter-in-law knock me to the ground and my son say nothing. But I was smiling. Because while I cut my piece of pecan pie, while I served fresh coffee in the vintage mugs I inherited from my mother, while I half listened to the nervous conversations, my mind was somewhere else. I was thinking about the letter that Henry had left me before dying, the one I kept in his study, in the drawer that no one else knew how to open, because it had a special lock. I was thinking about all the documents I had signed, the deeds, the wills. I was thinking about Henry's old cell phone that still worked and had messages that Ryan had never seen. I was thinking that Vanessa had made a mistake, a huge mistake. She had underestimated me. That night, after everyone left and the house fell silent after Ryan and Vanessa locked themselves in their room without even asking me if I was okay, I did not go to sleep. I went to Henry's study, and what I found there changed everything. But that is what Vanessa would discover 3 days later when she woke up with 23 missed calls and her perfect world blown to pieces. But let me explain to you how we got to this point. Because nobody pushes a mother-in-law at the Christmas table out of nowhere. This was cooked over a slow fire like the stew Henry loved so much for 8 full months. It all started on the day of my husband's funeral 5 years ago, a gray Tuesday in February. Henry had died of a heart attack while pruning the roses in the garden. He fell among the flowers he tended every Sunday, with his hands still dirty with earth. Finding him like that was the hardest thing I have ever lived through. 42 years of marriage ended in a sigh. The wake was long, the church was full. Henry was beloved in the neighborhood. He helped the neighbors, he lent tools, he always had a piece of advice or a helping hand. Ryan cried while hugging me, and I, despite my pain, felt that at least we had each other. Vanessa arrived at the funeral in sky-high heels and a black dress that seemed more appropriate for a cocktail party than a burial. She had been married to Ryan for 3 years, but that day I saw her differently. While I received condolences, while I hugged people who mourned the loss of my Henry, she walked through the house, looking evaluating. I saw her open drawers in the kitchen. I saw her touch the living room curtains, as if calculating how old they were. I saw her stand in front of the mahogany bookshelf in the study and run her finger along the edge, checking for dust that was not there, because I cleaned that house as if it were a temple. It is a very big house for a single person. She told me that night after everyone had left. We were in the kitchen. I was washing mugs with hands trembling from held-back tears. "Aren't you afraid to stay here alone, sweetie? Sweetie." That is what she called me, with that diminutive nickname that sounded affectionate but had poison underneath. "This is my house," I answered her. "Henry and I built it. I raised Ryan here. All my memories are here." She smiled, a smile that did not reach her eyes. Of course I was just saying. The first months after Henry's death were a hell of loneliness. The house, that had always been full of life, now creaked with silences. I prepared coffee for 2 out of habit and then remembered. I set the table for 2. I talked to myself, thinking he would answer me from the garden. Ryan came to visit me on Sundays, but the visits became more spaced out. First every 2 weeks, then once a month, always with excuses, work commitments, exhaustion. Vanessa never accompanied him. She has a migraine, she is with friends, she has errands. But I knew the truth. Vanessa did not want to come because this house reminded her that it was not hers. Not yet. The real change arrived 8 months ago. Ryan appeared one Saturday afternoon without warning. He had dark circles under his eyes and a face full of worry. He sat with me in the living room in the same armchair where I used to read him stories when he was a boy. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said, and his tone made my skin crawl. "Vanessa and I have been thinking. This house is too big for you. 3 floors, the garden, the stairs. What happens if you fall? What happens if you get sick and there is no one here?" I felt my heart tighten. "Ryan, I am 68 years old, not 90. I am perfectly fine." I know, but what would you think if we moved in with you? That way you are not alone and we can take care of you. Besides, we could save the rent on our apartment." "It is a benefit for everyone." I should have said no. I should have listened to that voice in my head that was screaming danger. But he was my son, my only son, and the house felt so empty without Henry. "It is okay," I said, "but this is still my house, my rules." Ryan hugged me. "Of course, Mom, it will always be your house." They moved in a week later, and with them arrived the beginning of my nightmare. On the first day, Vanessa brought 2 decorators, just to refresh the place a little, sweetie. Nothing personal, but this needs to be modernized. Modernizing meant that the lace curtains I had embroidered by hand disappeared. The photos of Henry you have in the living room sadden the atmosphere too much. Better we store them away. The linen tablecloth we used at Christmas is very worn out. I brought a new one from the department store. My space began shrinking. First I lost the living room, then the dining room. Henry's study turned into Ryan's office, although he never worked there. My sewing room, where I made dresses for the neighborhood children, was transformed into a gym with machines that Vanessa never used. "It's just that this house needs to be renovated, sweetie. It looks like a museum. We have to bring it into the 21st century." Vanessa would tell me every time I protested, and Ryan, my son, my boy, he would just nod. "Mom, don't be old-fashioned. A little change doesn't hurt." But the change that hurt the most arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I had gone out to church like every Tuesday. When I returned, I found Vanessa in my bedroom. My bedroom. She was going through my jewelry box. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. She jumped, but recovered her composure quickly. "Oh, sweetie, you scared me. I was just admiring your jewelry. You have very pretty things." She closed the jewelry box, but I saw the glint in her eyes, the same glint she had when she looked at the house after Henry's funeral. That night, I checked my jewelry box. The garnet necklace was missing, the necklace that Henry's mother had given me on my wedding day. Antique garnets set in old silver with a clasp that had our initials engraved. It was not the most expensive thing I owned, but it was the most valuable. It was history. It was love. It was memory. I searched the whole house. Nothing. 3 days later, Susan sent me a screenshot from Instagram. It was Vanessa at an elegant dinner wearing my necklace. The caption said, "Vintage vibes with inherited jewelry." Inherited. As if I were already dead. As if my life were just an obstacle between her and what she wanted. I confronted Ryan that same afternoon. I waited for him to arrive from work. I intercepted him in the entryway before Vanessa could hear us. I had the phone in my hand with the Instagram photo open. "Ryan, I need to speak with you." "It is about your grandmother's garnet necklace." My son did not even look me in the eyes. He took off his tie, tired, and sighed as if I were one more problem on his to-do list for the day. "What is it now, Mom?" Those words. What is it now? As if I were the one causing problems, as if demanding respect in my own house were a bother. I showed him the photo. "Vanessa is wearing the necklace your grandmother gave me, the one that disappeared from my jewelry box 3 days ago." "Did you give her permission to take it?" Ryan looked at the screen for barely a second. "Oh, Mom. She just borrowed it. She is going to return it." Borrowed. She entered my room without permission, took something that is not hers, and is showing it off on social media as if it were an inheritance that already belongs to her. You are exaggerating. Those 3 words hit me harder than the shove that would come months later. Exaggerating. Me. The one who had raised this man alone for years while Henry worked double shifts. The one who sold pies at 5 in the morning to pay for the private college he wanted. The one who stayed up late darning his clothes because we did not have money to buy new ones. I am not exaggerating, Ryan. That necklace has a sentimental value that you cannot buy in any jewelry store. Your grandmother gave it to me with her own hands 2 hours before I married your father. She told me, take care of it like you take care of your marriage, with love and respect, and now your wife takes it like it is nothing. Ryan ran his hand through his hair, that gesture he had made since he was a boy, when he did not want to face something. Mom Vanessa did not know it was so important to you. Besides, don't you think you are being a little selfish? Selfish. The word remained floating between us like toxic smoke. I felt the air escaping from my lungs. My own son, the boy I nursed for 2 years because we did not have money for formula, was calling me selfish for wanting to keep the little I had left of his father and grandmother. Selfish, I repeated, and my voice sounded hollow even to myself. Defending what is mine is selfishness. It is just a necklace, Mom. You won't die if you lend it. Vanessa is going to take care of it. At that moment, Vanessa appeared on the staircase. She was wearing designer sweatpants and a silk blouse that cost more than my Social Security check for 2 months. She had cut her hair. Now she wore it short and modern, very different from the discreet style she used when she married Ryan. Is something wrong? She asked with that sweet voice she used when there were witnesses. Caroline is upset about the necklace, Ryan said, and I noticed how he no longer called me Mom in front of her. Carolyn, as if I were a stranger. Vanessa walked down the stairs, calmly smiling. Oh, sweetie, I am so sorry. I did not know it would bother you. I saw it in your jewelry box when I was looking for some aspirin on your nightstand, and it seemed so beautiful to me. I thought you wouldn't mind if I wore it one night, to feel like part of the family. Liar. The aspirin was in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, not in my room, and my jewelry box was on the vanity, not the nightstand. But she spun her lie with the same ease with which I spun yarn, and Ryan swallowed it whole. Of course I will return it to you, she continued. I sent it to be cleaned with a jeweler downtown. The stones were dull, sweetie. It needed a professional cleaning. You are going to love how it turned out. A professional cleaning. As if I had not taken care of that necklace for 40 years, as if my hands were dirty or careless. When will you return it to me? I asked directly. As soon as it is ready. 1 week, maximum 2. 2 weeks passed, then 3, then a month. Every time I asked, Vanessa had a different excuse. Oh, I forgot to pick it up. The jeweler is on vacation. There was a problem with the insurance, but almost done. By the 2nd month, I stopped asking, because I understood something. She was never going to return it to me, and Ryan was never going to demand it. One afternoon, Susan came to visit me. It had been a while since we chatted properly between Vanessa and Ryan's move, and my shame in admitting that things were not right. My sister sat with me in the kitchen, the only room Vanessa had not yet renovated, because she said cooking was not her thing. Caroline, are you okay? Susan asked me while I served her fresh coffee. You look thinner, quieter. And there in my own kitchen, surrounded by the smell of cinnamon that always comforted me, I broke down. I told her everything, the necklace, the changes in the house, how Vanessa entered my room without permission, how my things were disappearing little by little, the photos of Henry stored away so as not to sadden me, my tablecloths renewed my spaces, modernized. Susan took my hands. Her eyes were full of tears of rage. That woman is pushing you out of your own house, Caroline, and Ryan is letting her. He is my son, I whispered. I cannot fight with my son. But he can fight with you, right? He can choose her over you." I did not answer, because we both knew it was true. That night, while Ryan and Vanessa went out to dinner with friends, I entered their room. I'm not proud of having done it, but I needed to know. I needed to confirm what my heart already knew. I found my necklace in her jewelry box among gold bracelets and diamond earrings that I had never seen. My mother-in-law's garnet necklace next to other pieces, I recognized my mother's pearl earrings, the jade brooch Henry gave me on our 20th anniversary, a silver bracelet with turquoise that belonged to my grandmother. Vanessa had not sent anything to be cleaned. She had stolen my life piece by piece and had stored it in her jewelry box like war trophies. I took the necklace. It was mine. But when I was about to leave, I saw something else. A notebook open on her vanity with notes. House value approximately $850,000. Sell and buy condo downtown. Antique jewelry approximately $40,000 if sold separately. My hand trembled holding that notebook. There it was. The inventory of my life, the plan to get rid of me. And the worst part was that I was barely discovering the tip of the iceberg, because what I would hear that night 3 weeks before Christmas would break my heart in a way I never imagined possible. I put the notebook back exactly as I found it. I took only my garnet necklace and left that room with my heart beating in my ears. I felt nauseous. That night, I could not sleep. I stayed sitting on my bed, clutching the necklace between my hands, asking myself how I had reached this point. Susan returned 3 days later with reinforcements. She brought Mr. Stevens, our neighbor, for a lifetime. He lived 2 houses down in that stone house with wrought iron balconies. He had been an attorney for 40 years before retiring, and he had been a close friend of Henry. On Sundays, they sat together to drink beer and talk about politics, football, and life. Mr. Stevens was 72 years old with completely white hair and blue eyes that missed nothing. That day, he arrived with a worn leather briefcase under his arm and a face full of concern. "Caroline," he told me after Susan served him coffee, "your sister told me what is happening and I do not like it at all." We were sitting in the kitchen, the door closed. Vanessa had gone shopping and Ryan was at work. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe calmly in my own house. "Mr. Stevens, I don't want to cause problems," I started to say, but he raised his hand. "The problems are already here, dear. The question is if you are going to do something or if you are going to let them kick you out of your own house." I stayed silent. Susan squeezed my hand. Mr. Stevens opened his briefcase and took out some papers. Henry came to see me 2 months before dying. We updated his will. "Did you know that?" I shook my head. Henry had never mentioned anything to me. "He wanted to make sure you were protected. This house is in your name, Caroline, only in your name. Henry set it up that way 10 years ago. There are also insurance policies for $50,000 investment certificates for another $40,000, everything in your name." The tears burned my eyes. My Henry, taking care of me even after death. "But there is something else," Mr. Stevens continued, and his tone became serious. 3 weeks ago, your daughter-in-law came to see me." I felt my blood freeze. "Vanessa went to see you." "Yes." She asked me about inheritance processes, about how wills work, about what happens when an older person can no longer take care of their properties. She asked specifically about nursing homes and legal guardianships. Susan let out a curse word that would make a sailor blush. "I told her I could not give her that information without your consent," explained Mr. Stevens, but the conversation left me very unsettled. "That girl is planning something, Caroline, and it is nothing good." "She has a notebook," I blurted out suddenly, "with values, the house, the jewelry, everything is written down." Mr. Stevens nodded as if that confirmed his suspicions. "You need to protect yourself, now, before it is too late." "But she is my son's wife," I protested, though my voice sounded weak even to me. "I can't simply—" "You can't defend what is yours. What Henry worked 40 years to give you. Caroline listened to me well. That woman is a viper, and vipers bite. Susan leaned toward me. Sister, I love you. And because I love you, I am going to be hard on you. You are being naive. Vanessa is using you. And Ryan, forgive me for saying it like this, but your son is a coward who chose that woman over his own mother. I wanted to defend him. I wanted to say that Ryan was just confused, that she manipulated him, that deep down he was still my boy. But the words did not come out, because deep down I knew Susan was right. That afternoon, after Mr. Stevens and Susan left, I stayed alone in the kitchen preparing dinner. I was chopping onions for the rice when I heard voices upstairs. Vanessa had returned, and she was talking on the phone. I approached the foot of the stairs. Not to spy, I told myself, just to know if she needed anything. No, my love, not yet, Vanessa was saying, and her voice had that pampering tone she used with Ryan. But almost. The old lady is more confused every day. The other day she forgot where she put the keys. Yesterday she complained that her head hurt all day. Lies. I had not forgotten any keys, and my head hurt because I had spent nights without sleeping, worrying about all this. I already spoke with the lawyer in the neighborhood. He is a bitter old man. He didn't want to help me. But I found another one downtown who says he can speed up the paperwork if we demonstrate that she cannot live alone. Yes, my life. $800,000. Imagine what we can do with that. A condo downtown, the new car you wanted, those vacations in Europe. $800,000. The price of my life. The price of 40 years of work, of love, of memories. Ryan is already convinced. Last night I told him I found your mom talking to herself in the garden, that I worry she is losing her mind. Poor baby. He got so sad, but it is for her own good, right? Modern nursing homes are nice. They have gardens activities. She will be better there than alone in this huge house. I covered my mouth to not scream, to not go up those stairs and confront her, because I needed to hear more. I needed to know how far the betrayal reached. Christmas dinner. Yes, everyone is coming. Her brothers, nephews, the whole family. It is going to be perfect. The more witnesses see how fragile she is, the better for us. You know, a little push here, a confusion there, nothing serious. Just enough so everyone worries and supports the idea of the nursing home. A little push. The words resonated in my head like warning bells. I went up to my room in silence. I locked the door, something I had started to do since I found Vanessa going through my things. I sat on the bed I had shared with Henry for 40 years and hugged his photograph. What do I do, my love? I whispered to the photo. What do I do? But Henry could not answer, and I was alone in my own house being hunted like prey by the woman my son had chosen over me. Susan was right. Mr. Stevens was right. Everyone was right. But I was not yet ready to accept it. I still believed Ryan would react, that he would defend me, that he would remember who had raised him. I still believed in my son's love, and that belief, that foolish hope, almost cost me everything. The following days were a silent torture. Every time I saw Vanessa, I remembered her phone conversation. A little push here, a confusion there. Every time Ryan asked me how I was, I wondered if he really cared, or if he was just evaluating how fragile I looked. Christmas was approaching, and I continued making preparations like an automaton. I bought the ingredients for the ham. I took the Christmas decorations out of the attic. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, even though every movement hurt me. Not physically. The pain was deeper inside, in that place where we keep the love for our children. Vanessa watched me. I felt her like a vulture waiting for its prey to stop moving. On the night of December 23rd, Susan called to confirm she would come early the next day to help me with dinner. Are you sure about having this dinner, Caroline? After everything you told me, it is Christmas. I answered her, and it is still my house, my family. But that night, Christmas Eve, my world finished falling apart. It was 11 at night. I could not sleep. Insomnia had become my constant companion in those months. I went down to the kitchen in slippers and a robe to make myself some chamomile tea. While the water boiled, I heard voices. They were coming from Ryan and Vanessa's room. Their door was ajar. I should have left. I should have gone up to my room and covered my ears. But something stopped me. That same need to know the truth that had made me check Vanessa's notebook, that need to confirm that a small part of the boy I had raised still existed. I approached the hallway. From there, I could hear perfectly. "Ryan, I can't take it anymore," Vanessa was saying, and her voice sounded tired. "This house is falling apart. It needs repairs that cost a fortune, and your mom refuses to invest in anything." "It's just that, for her, this house is sacred," Ryan answered, and my heart jumped. Maybe he would still defend me. "Sacred? It is old and outdated." "Ryan, this property is worth more than $800,000. $800,000. We could sell it and buy an incredible condo downtown with security, a gym, a pool, modern, comfortable, and we would have money left over to invest." I know, but I can't simply kick my mom out of her house." Silence, a silence that made me hold my breath. "You don't have to kick her out," Vanessa said, and her tone changed. It became soft, manipulative. "There are beautiful places for seniors, my love. Residences with gardens, with nurses, with activities. Places where people her age can socialize, make friends, be accompanied." "A nursing home," Ryan said, and the word fell like a stone. "An assisted living community," corrected Vanessa. "It is not the same. They are nice places. Ryan and she would be better there than here alone. Think about it. What happens if she falls on the stairs, if she gets sick in the middle of the night, if she forgets to turn off the gas? My mom is fine. She is 68, not 90. Love, I have seen her forget things. Talking to herself in the garden, confused with dates. It is nobody's fault, it is just age, but she needs care that we cannot give her." Lies. It was all lies. But my son. "Let me think about it," said Ryan after an eternal silence. And there. That was when something inside me died. He did not say, "You are crazy." He did not say, "I would never do that." He did not say, "She is my mother and she stays in her house." He said, "Let me think about it. My son was considering putting me in a nursing home to keep my house." "Think about it well," Vanessa continued, and I heard the bed creak. "Your mom lived her life, had her marriage raised, her son enjoyed her house for 40 years. Now it is our turn. We have the right to build our future. And this old shell is not the future Ryan. It is the past. Old shell. That is what she called the house where my husband died pruning roses, the house where my son took his first steps, the walls we painted together, the floors we chose with so much care. You are right that she can no longer maintain this alone, admitted Ryan, and with those words he signed my sentence. I backed away from the hallway. My legs were trembling. I reached my room without knowing how. I closed the door. And there alone in the dark, I hugged my wedding photograph with Henry. I was 26 years old in that photo. Henry was 28. We looked so young, so full of hope. He had promised to take care of me always. We had built this life together, sweat, tears, sacrifices. We sold everything to buy this land. We lived in an unfinished construction for 3 years. We ate ramen noodles and bread for months to be able to pay for materials. And we had a son we loved with every fiber of our being, a son for whom Henry worked double shifts while I sold pies at dawn, a son who paid for his architecture degree because I sewed and embroidered dresses for proms, a son who had everything we never had. That same son was now in the room next door considering locking me in a nursing home to sell my house and buy himself a condo downtown. I cried that night like I hadn't cried since Henry's death. I cried in silence with my face buried in the pillow so they wouldn't hear me. I cried for the naivety of believing that a mother's love was returned. I cried for every sacrifice I made thinking it mattered. I cried because my son saw me as an obstacle, not as his mother. But between the tears, something began to grow. It was not sadness. It was something hotter, darker, more powerful. It was rage. Rage because I had allowed this to go so far. Rage because I had made myself small in my own house. Rage because I had accepted insults, thefts, disdain, all to keep the peace with a son who did not value me. I got out of bed. I looked at myself in the vanity mirror. I had red eyes, messy hair, a wrinkled robe. I looked old, tired, defeated. No, I whispered to my reflection. Not anymore. I opened the secret drawer of my vanity, the one Henry had installed for me to keep important documents. I took everything out. Deeds to the house, insurance policies, investment certificates, the will, and I found something else. A letter written in Henry's handwriting dated 2 weeks before his death. My Caroline. If you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you. I want you to know that this house is yours. Only yours. I put it in your name because I trust you, not anyone else. If someone tries to remove you from here, if someone tries to make you feel that you do not belong in your own home, defend yourself. Do not let anyone make you feel small. You are stronger than you think. I love you. Always. Henry. I read the letter 3 times. With every reading, I felt how the rage turned into determination, into clarity, into purpose. Henry was right. I was stronger than I believed. And that Christmas Eve, during the dinner, I prepared myself with my family as a witness. Vanessa would give me the perfect opportunity to prove it. The morning of December 25th dawned clear, too clear for what was coming. I got up at 5, as I always did on Christmas. I put the ham in to glaze. I prepared the stuffing for the turkey. I made the potato salad with raisins and almonds, my mother's recipe. I cut the vegetables for the side dishes. I did it all alone. Vanessa appeared at 11, already made up, and with her hair done, wearing a fitted red dress that left little to the imagination. "Oh, sweetie, why didn't you wake me up? I would have helped you," she said while pouring herself coffee. Lie, she never helped me. She didn't even know where I kept the pots. Ryan came down half an hour later in sweatpants, looking hungover. He had stayed up late watching movies, he said. He didn't say good morning. He only asked if the coffee was ready. The family started arriving at 3 in the afternoon. First Susan, thank God, with her famous gingerbread cookies and hot cocoa. Then my brother Ernest with his wife Betty and their 3 adult children. Then my sister Ruth with her family. In total, we were 14 people in the dining room. My dining room. With the tablecloth I embroidered 20 years ago. With the fine china Henry gave me on our 15th anniversary. With the crystal glasses I inherited from my grandmother. Everything was perfect. The table looked beautiful. The smell of turkey and warm apple cider filled the house. The children ran around the garden. It was Christmas. It should have been a happy day. Vanessa sat next to Ryan on the left side of the table. Susan was on my right. I was getting ready to sit in my usual spot next to the window by the lemon tree when Vanessa stood up suddenly. "Wait," she said loudly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Not that chair." I froze with my hand on the back of my chair. "Excuse me." Vanessa pointed to the empty chair at the head of the table, the chair where Henry always sat. No one had sat there in 5 years. It was a tacit agreement, a way to honor his memory. "That chair," said Vanessa, and her voice sounded strangely high-pitched. "That chair holds the memory of my mother-in-law. You cannot just sit there like it is nothing." The silence fell over the table like a heavy blanket. Everyone was looking at us, at her, at me, waiting. "Vanessa," I said, slowly trying to keep calm, "that is Henry's chair. My husband and I am not sitting there. I am sitting in my chair, the usual one." But she wasn't listening or didn't want to listen. Her eyes were bright, her jaw tense, as if all the acting of months had reached its climax, as if this were the moment for which she had been rehearsing. "No," she screamed. "That chair is sacred. Get up from there." And then she did it. She pushed me. Her 2 hands against my chest, hard without warning. I am 68 years old. My bones are not what they used to be. Neither are my reflexes. I didn't have time to grab onto anything. I only felt the impact, the loss of balance, and then the floor. The blow was dry, horrible. My right hip smashed against the green tiles Henry and I installed in 1987. The pain went through me like a lightning bolt. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The world went silent. Then everything exploded. "Caroline!" shouted Susan, getting up immediately. Her hands reached for me. They tried to help me get up. "What did you do to her?" roared Ernest, standing up with so much force that his chair fell backward. "She is crazy," squealed my niece, Danielle, and I saw the glint of her cell phone. She was recording. Of course she was recording. Everything is content now. But what hurt the most, what destroyed me completely, was Ryan's silence. My son was sitting with his fork halfway to his mouth. He was looking at me lying there on the floor with my wrinkled beige skirt, with my white blouse stained with gravy, with my dignity torn to pieces. And he didn't move. "Ryan," I whispered, and my voice came out broken. "Son." He lowered the fork slowly. "Mom, don't be dramatic," he said, and the words fell like stones on my wounded chest. "Vanessa didn't mean to." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't defend her completely, but he didn't defend me either. Vanessa was still standing, breathing heavily, with her hands still extended from the shove. Her red dress seemed brighter under the Christmas lights. She looked like a queen in her conquered castle. "That chair holds the memory of your father," she screamed at me, although now her voice trembled a little. "You cannot disrespect him by sitting there." And there, lying on the floor of my own house with my family looking at me as if I were a stranger, with my son choosing not to choose me, I understood something fundamental. This was not an accident. This was not a burst of Christmas emotion. This was theater. Carefully planned theater so that my whole family would see me as what Vanessa wanted them to see. A confused old woman who caused problems. A fragile woman who could not take care of herself alone. A little push here, a confusion there. Her words from that phone call resonated in my head with perfect clarity. Susan helped me get up. I felt the sharp pain in my hip, but I refused to let it show. I dusted off my skirt, I smoothed my hair, I stood up straight and smiled. That smile must have been terrifying because I saw Vanessa take a step back. "You are right," I told her with a clear and firm voice. "This chair is sacred. It is the chair where my husband sat, where he blessed this table, where he spoke of family and respect, but Henry died 5 years ago, and I am his widow, the owner of this house, the one who prepared this meal, the one who invited you all." I walked slowly around the table. Every step hurt, but it didn't matter. Everyone was looking at me. Every pair of eyes in that room was fixed on me. "So sit there yourself if you want Vanessa," I continued. "After all, you have already decided to appropriate everything else. My necklace, my jewelry, my spaces. Why not the chair, too?" The silence was different now, dense, uncomfortable. I saw my brothers looking at each other, how Betty opened her mouth in surprise, how the nephews put away their cell phones. I sat in my chair, not in Henry's, in mine, the usual one, and I continued eating dinner, because what nobody at that table knew was that I had already made a decision. And that very night, while everyone slept, I would put in motion a plan that would change everything forever. The dinner ended in a thick silence. Some tried to make conversation about the weather, about the gifts, about anything that was not the giant elephant in the room that my daughter-in-law had just pushed me to the floor in front of the whole family, and my son had done nothing to defend me. Susan stayed until late, helping me clean up. Vanessa had gone up to her room immediately after dessert, claiming a migraine. Ryan followed her like a lapdog. My brothers left with awkward hugs and looks of pity, which burned me more than any insult. "Caroline, come stay with me tonight," Susan begged me while we washed dishes. "Don't stay here with that viper." "This is my house," I answered her, and my voice sounded firmer than I felt. "I'm not going anywhere." Susan hugged me tight before leaving. "Be careful, sister. That woman is dangerous. I know, I thought, but she doesn't know how dangerous I can be." At 11 at night, the house was silent. I heard the door of Ryan and Vanessa's room close. The hallway lights went out. I waited 1 more hour sitting on my bed, counting every minute on the wall clock that had belonged to my mother. At midnight, I went down the stairs barefoot. Every step creaked as if giving me away, but I continued. My hip hurt like hell from the blow, but the physical pain was nothing compared to what burned in my chest. Henry's study was on the ground floor at the end of the hall. Nobody went there. Vanessa had checked it briefly when they moved in, but since she didn't find anything valuable at first glance, she had left it alone. Pure old papers and boring books, she had told Ryan, but she didn't know the secrets of that room. I did. I locked the door and turned on only the desk lamp. The yellowish light illuminated the wood-paneled walls, the shelves full of engineering books, the photo of our wedding hanging over the metal filing cabinet. I went straight to the desk. The main drawer had a lock that looked ordinary, but Henry had taught me the trick. You had to press a specific corner while you pulled or it wouldn't open. It had been his way of keeping important documents protected. I pressed. I pulled. The drawer gave way. Inside was everything. The deeds to the house with my name in large and clear letters. Caroline Stevens, widow of Mr. Miller. Sole owner. The life insurance policies Henry had taken out. $50,000 that I didn't even know existed. Investment certificates for another $40,000. A savings account with $20,000. My husband had left me over $100,000 between insurance and investments, and me living with anxiety, asking myself if I could maintain the house with my Social Security check of $1,200 a month. But what impacted me most was the letter written by hand, dated 2 weeks before his death. The same one I had found days ago, but now I read it with different eyes. Caroline, this house is yours. No one else's. If someone tries to remove you, if someone tries to make you believe you cannot do it alone, defend yourself. You are stronger than you think. The tears burned me, but not from sadness, from determination. I kept looking. I found the updated will that Harry had drafted with Mr. Stevens. Everything was crystal clear. The house was mine. The investments were mine. Ryan would inherit only a small property upstate that Harry had bought years ago, valued at approximately $50,000. It was a decent amount, but nothing compared to the $800,000 the main house was worth, and there was a specific clause that froze my blood. It read, "If my wife Emily Parker is unable or unwilling to keep the main property, it shall be donated to a foundation for elderly women in vulnerable situations. Under no circumstances shall it be directly inherited by my son, Ryan Parker." Harry had known. Somehow he had anticipated this. He had protected his house, our legacy. He saved it from the claws of anyone who wanted to take advantage. But there was something else. In the bottom drawer, wrapped in a plastic bag, was Harry's old cell phone. It was the one he used before upgrading models a year before he passed away. I had kept all his old gadgets there, unable to throw them out. They were pieces of him. I took it out. It still had battery life. Harry was always careful about charging everything before storing it away. It turned on slowly, the screen lighting up with a photo of us in Florida. I knew the password 1508, the date of our anniversary. The phone unlocked. I started reviewing messages, conversations with Ryan from 4 years ago, and there it was, everything. "Dad, Valerie wants us to invest in a business. We need $30,000. Could you lend it to me?" "Son, I do not have that amount in liquid cash right now. What business are you talking about?" "A restaurant with her cousins. It is a very good investment." "Ryan, be careful. Business with family usually goes wrong, and $30,000 is a lot of money." "You are always so negative. Valerie knows what she is doing." I kept reading. Messages from months later. "Dad, the business did not work. We lost everything. Valerie is very upset." "I am sorry, son. What happened?" "Her cousins turned out to be thieves. They kept the money. Valerie says it is my fault for not researching well." Ryan, you are responsible for your decisions, not Valerie. Where did you get those $30,000? From my savings and from some credit cards. Credit cards, son. That is dangerous. More messages. These were from 2 years ago. Dad, how much is the house worth? Valerie is asking. Why is she asking that? Just curiosity. She says you should sell it and buy something smaller, easier to maintain. Ryan, that house belongs to me and your mother. We worked 40 years to pay for it. It is not for sale. And tell Valerie not to meddle in affairs that do not concern her. Don't get like that. It was just a suggestion. When I die, that house will belong to your mother, only to your mother. She will decide what to do with it. Understood. Yes, Dad. But the most revealing message was dated 3 weeks before Harry's death. Ryan, I updated my will with Mr. Stevens. Your mother is protected. The house, the investments, everything. If something happens to me, take care of your mom. Take care of your mom, not the inheritance. She gave you everything. Do not forget it. Okay, Dad, rest. Rest. As if my son knew that Harry was tired. As if he had anticipated something. I closed the phone with trembling hands. Everything was there. The lies, the manipulation, Valerie's attempts to get her hands on our assets for years. And Harry had seen the truth. That is why he had updated the will. That is why he had put everything in my name only. I sat in that study, surrounded by my husband's books and memories, and I felt something change inside me. I was no longer the confused and manipulable old woman Valerie wanted me to be. I was no longer the naive mother waiting for her son to react. I was Emily Parker, widow owner of a house worth $800,000 with almost $200,000 in investments and insurance, with legal documents backing me up with evidence of everything, and with a cold, calculated rage that I was going to use to reclaim my life. Because if Valerie wanted war, she would have, only she did not know she had just woken up the wrong woman. The next 3 days were perfect theater. I acted like the Emily of always, helpful, quiet, invisible. I made breakfast. I cleaned the house. I smiled when Valerie made her poisonous comments about how old the living room looked or how much the kitchen needed renovating. But inside, I was another person. Every move I made was calculated. Every word I said was measured, because now I had something Valerie never had, a plan. On December 26th, while Valerie slept until noon and Ryan watched television, I went out. I told him I was going to church. A lie. I went straight to Mr. Stevens' house. He received me in his study, a room lined with wood that smelled of pipe tobacco and old books. I sat across from his desk with my bag full of documents. Mr. Stevens, I need your help, I told him bluntly, and I need this to stay between us. He adjusted his glasses and nodded. Tell me, Emily. I told him everything. The shove, the conversation I overheard about putting me in a nursing home, the notebook with the values of my house and my jewelry, the sales Valerie had made of my things, everything. Mr. Stevens listened in silence, but I saw his jaw tighten with every word. When I finished, he slapped the desk with the palm of his hand. That girl is not just a snake. She is a criminal, he said. Selling your jewelry without permission is theft, and conspiring to incapacitate you, legally, is fraud. I want to protect myself, I told him, but I also want them to learn. I want them to understand that they cannot do this. Mr. Stevens smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was a war smile. Then we are going to do this right. Very well. We spent the next 2 hours planning. Mr. Stevens pulled out forms, made calls, took notes. When I left his house, I had a clear list of what I needed to do. First, change my will. Mr. Stevens would draft a new one. If something happened to me mysteriously, the house would not go to Ryan. It would go to the Women's Shelter Foundation. Ryan would only receive the property upstate, and if he or Valerie tried to contest the will, even that would be lost. Second update. The beneficiaries of my bank accounts and insurance. Everything to Susan in a trust for me while I lived. Ryan would not see a dime. Third, changed the locks on my bedroom and Harry's study. Mr. Stevens knew a discreet locksmith who would come that same day. Fourth, transfer all my money from the accounts Ryan knew about to a new account where only I had access. Mr. Stevens would accompany me to the bank on the 27th. Fifth, install security cameras. Small, discreet, but functional. And sixth, the most important thing, gather all the evidence. The photos of Valerie wearing my jewelry. The online sales records that Susan had found tracking her Instagram account. The messages from Harry's phone. Everything documented. Everything backed up. "When do we make the final move?" asked Mr. Stevens. "December 28th, I replied. The timing is perfect." That afternoon, the locksmith arrived. He was an older gentleman, a friend of Mr. Stevens, who asked no questions. He changed the locks on my room and the study while Valerie was at the gym and Ryan was working. "No one enters without your permission now, Mrs. Parker," he told me, handing me the only 2 keys for each door. Susan arrived at dusk with a discreet bag. "The cameras," she whispered. "They are tiny. They connect to the cell phone. I will teach you how to use them." We took an hour to install them. One in the corner of the living room hidden among the photo frames. One in my room behind the clock. One in the study on the bookshelf. No one would notice them unless they were looking specifically. "Now you can see everything from your cell phone," Susan explained as she showed me the application. "Anything they do will be recorded." December 27th dawned cold. Mr. Stevens picked me up at 9 in the morning. I told Valerie I was going to the doctor. Another lie. We went straight to the bank. The account executive attended to me in a private office. I explained that I wanted to close my previous savings account and open a new one, that I wanted to transfer everything. Everything, Mrs. Parker, everything. The $50,000 in savings. And I want to withdraw the investments in bonds as well, the $250,000. That is $300,000 in total. Are you sure? Completely sure? Mr. Stevens intervened. "We also want the beneficiaries of the insurance policy updated." Half an hour later, everything was done. New account, only in my name, no access for anyone else. The beneficiaries changed from Ryan to Susan, and I requested a new debit card that would arrive in 5 days. "One more thing," I told the executive. "Can you send a statement to my new email address?" I gave her the email that Susan had helped me create days ago. I would no longer use the one Ryan knew. When we left the bank, Mr. Stevens squeezed my shoulder. "You are doing well, Emily. Harry would be proud." That night, Ryan arrived early from work. He looked upset. He went straight to find Valerie, who was in the living room painting her nails. "I need to talk to you," he said in a low voice, but I was in the kitchen and heard everything. "I went to the bank today to check some things of Mom's for the nursing home issue, you know, and the account is closed." Silence. "Closed?" Valerie asked, and her voice sounded shrill. "What do you mean, closed, canceled, everything withdrawn? There is nothing." "And the investments? Also. Everything is empty." I heard Valerie let out a curse word. "Did your mom do that?" The confused and manipulable old woman. "It must be a mistake," Ryan said, but he sounded unsure. "Tomorrow I am going to talk to her." But I was not going to give him that chance, because on December 28th, when the sun rose, I would execute the final part of my plan. That night before sleeping, I reread Harry's messages on his old cell phone, especially the last one. "Take care of your mom, not the inheritance." "I am sorry, my love," I thought as I turned off the light. "Our son chose poorly, but I am going to honor your memory in the only way I can, by defending what we built together." And tomorrow, when Valerie and Ryan woke up, their perfect world would start to crumble, because the confused old woman had just shown her claws. On December 28th, I woke up at 5 in the morning, not out of habit, but from pure adrenaline. That day would change everything, and my body knew it. I dressed with care. Black dress pants, a burgundy blouse, my pearl necklace that Harry had given me and that Valerie had never been able to steal because I kept it in the secret drawer. I put on makeup. I did my hair. I looked in the mirror. The woman who stared back was not the same one who had fallen to the floor on Christmas. This woman had straight shoulders, a firm jaw, eyes on fire. This woman was ready for war. At 6 a.m, I wrote a note and left it on the dining table. Went out to resolve pending matters. Back in the afternoon, Emily. I took my bag, verified that I had all the documents, and left my house without making a sound. Mr. Stevens was waiting for me outside in his old but reliable sedan. "Ready?" he asked me. "Ready?" We went first to his cousin, the lawyer, Maurice, a man of 50, with an office in an old building downtown. We showed him everything. The photos of Valerie using my jewelry, the sales records. Susan had found the messages from Harry's cell phone, the recordings from the security cameras where Valerie could be seen entering my room without permission. Attorney Maurice reviewed everything with attention. "Mrs. Parker, this is enough for a complaint for theft and fraud. If you want, we can proceed legally." "Not yet," I replied. "First, I want them to understand the magnitude of what they did. I want them to feel what I felt." He nodded. "Then I recommend preparing a legal ultimatum, a document giving them 48 hours to vacate the property or face criminal charges. I will draft it and sign it as your legal representative." Perfect. We spent the next 2 hours in that office. Maurice drafted the document. I reviewed it and signed it. We also signed the new will that Mr. Stevens had prepared, the house to the foundation if anything happened to me. Ryan left only with the property upstate. "One last thing," said the lawyer. "I recommend changing the security system of your house, something that only you control." Mr. Stevens smiled. "I already have the technician. He will go this very day." Meanwhile, in my house, Valerie and Ryan were waking up at 9. I know this because my cell phone started ringing at 9:15. "Ryan." I did not answer. He called again. I did not answer either. By 11 in the morning, I had 23 missed calls, 12 from Ryan, 11 from Valerie. Mr. Stevens and I had a quiet lunch at a diner near downtown. Chicken soup, roast beef with onions, red rice. As if it were any ordinary day, as if my life were not changing with every minute that passed. "Nervous?" Mr. Stevens asked me. "Terrified," I admitted, but stronger than ever. At 3 in the afternoon, the security technician met us at Mr. Stevens' house. He was a young man recommended by the notary's son. He brought a new alarm system complete with sensors and remote control. "It will take 2 hours to install," he explained. "But when I finish, no one enters or leaves without your authorization." Perfect. We arrived at my house at 4 in the afternoon. The technician in his van. Mr. Stevens in his sedan, me with my heart beating so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. The front door opened before I rang the bell. Valerie was there looking unhinged. Her hair was messy. Her makeup smeared her eyes red. She was wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled blouse. Nothing to do with the perfectly groomed woman she showed off on Instagram. "Where were you?" she screamed at me before I could say a word. "We have been calling you all day. We went to the bank and—" She stopped when she saw Mr. Stevens and the technician behind me. "Good afternoon, Valerie," I said calmly. "These gentlemen are here to do some installations. Excuse us." I entered my house. My house. Mr. Stevens and the technician followed me. Valerie stood in the doorway, mouth open. Ryan appeared running from the living room. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, barefoot, looking like he had not slept. "Mom, what is happening?" "We went to the bank today and they told us your account is closed." "Why did you do that without telling us?" I turned to look at him. My son. My boy, who was no longer a boy but a man of 35 years who had chosen money over his mother, "without telling you," I repeated, and my voice came out colder than I expected. "Why would I have to tell you anything about my money, Ryan, but we thought that—" Thought what? That it was already your money, that you could already plan it, count it? Ryan went pale. Valeria entered the living room like a raging bull. Listen to me well, you crazy old woman, she shouted, pointing her finger at me. That account had $50,000 and the investments were $250,000 more. We need that money for what? I interrupted her. For the condo downtown, for the vacation in Europe, for the new car. Valerie froze. Ah, you thought I didn't know, I continued. You thought I was the confused old woman who forgets keys and talks to herself in the garden, the one who needs to be in a nice nursing home with gardens and activities. I saw the color drain from Ryan's face. Mom, I never said... No, you only said let me think about it when your wife suggested putting me in a home to keep my house. The silence that followed was absolute. The technician discreetly started working on the alarm installation. Mr. Stevens stayed by my side, firm as an oak. I heard you, I told them, and my voice did not shake. The night of December 24th, I heard your entire conversation. Every word, every plan, every lie. Valerie took a step back. Ryan let himself fall onto the sofa. I also found your notebook, Valerie, the inventory of my house and my jewelry, and I recovered my garnet necklace from your jewelry box, along with all the other pieces you stole. I did not steal anything, Valerie started to say, but her voice sounded weak. No, then explain the sales on your Instagram account. $75,000 in antique jewelry sold in the last 6 months. Jewelry that was mine. Jewelry that disappeared from my jewelry box. I have screenshots of everything. I have dates. I have buyers that Susan contacted and who confirmed they bought family heirlooms. Valerie opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. And I have this, I said, taking Harry's old cell phone from my purse. The messages where Harry warned Ryan about you, where he told him not to let you manipulate him, where he reminded him to take care of his mother, not the inheritance. Ryan looked up. He had tears in his eyes. Mom, I also have recordings. I continued implacably of your phone calls, Valerie, where you plan how to make me look confused in front of the family, where you talk about a little push here, a confusion there, where you count the millions you will spend when you lock me up in a home. And there in my living room, surrounded by my things and my history, I saw Valerie's world crumble, exactly as she had tried to crumble mine. Valerie tried to recover. I saw her brain working at full speed, looking for an exit, an excuse, a way to flip the situation. But there was no escape. That is illegal, she said, finally pointing toward the hidden cameras. Recording without consent it is completely legal when it is done on your own private property. Mr. Stevens interrupted her with a calm but firm voice. And Mrs. Parker has every right to protect her assets from possible theft. I am not a thief, hissed Valerie. No, I said. Then return the $75,000 of the jewelry you sold. Right now. Silence. I didn't think you would, I continued. Ryan, go to your room and bring your wife's jewelry box. The big one, the black velvet one. My son looked at me with pleading eyes. Mom, please. Now, I had never yelled at him like that. Not when he was a child and broke the window playing ball. Not when he failed classes in college. Never. But today was different. Today my patience had came down 2 minutes later with the box came down 2 minutes later with the box. He put it on the coffee table with trembling hands. I opened it. Everything was there. My garnet necklace that was in the jewelry box, my mother's pearl earrings that I didn't know where they were, the jade brooch from the 20th anniversary that had been lost in the move, my grandmother's turquoise bracelet that maybe I had stored wrong. One by one, I took out each piece. I put them on the table like evidence in a trial. Each one of these pieces has a history, I said, and my voice cracked a little. This necklace was worn by my mother-in-law on my wedding day. She gave it to me with her own hands and said, "Welcome to the family, daughter." These pearl earrings I inherited when my mother died. She wore them every Sunday to go to church. This brooch Harry gave me when we had been married 20 years. He bought it with his entire Christmas bonus that year. Ryan had his head in his hands. He was crying in silence. And this bracelet. I continued taking the turquoises. My grandmother wore it when she took care of us as children. Your father and I loved seeing it shine when she made us hot chocolate. When she died, she left it to me, saying, "Keep it for your son." I looked Ryan straight in the eyes. "For you, Ryan, so you would have something from your great-grandmother, and you let your wife sell it for a few $1,000s to a stranger on Instagram." "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear I didn't know." "You didn't know," I repeated, and the rage returned to my voice. "You didn't know your wife entered my room without permission. You didn't know she sold my things on the internet. You didn't know, or you didn't want to know." He did not answer. I turned toward Valerie. "But what hurts me the most is not the jewelry. Money is recovered. Things are rebought. What hurts me the most is that you tried to steal my dignity, my autonomy, my right to live in my own house." I took out my cell phone. I looked for the recording I had made of her phone call. I hit play. Valerie's voice filled the room. "I almost convinced that idiot Ryan to put his mom in a nursing home. The old lady is more confused every day. 800,000. Imagine what we can do." I saw Ryan lift his head sharply. How he looked at Valerie with something I had never seen in his eyes. Repulsion. "Is this true?" he asked his wife with a hoarse voice. You called me an idiot. You planned to lock my mother in a home to sell her house. It is not just her house. You also have rights. You are her son." "It is her house," Ryan shouted, standing up. "She built it with my father. It is hers." For a second, I saw a flash of the boy I had raised, of the man Harry had dreamed he would be. But it was only a second. "Ryan, my love." Valerie started with a sweet voice. "Your mom is manipulating us. She is playing the victim. We just wanted to help her protect her." "You pushed her on Christmas," he yelled. "You threw her to the floor in front of the whole family." "It was an accident." "It was not an accident. This time it was me who shouted. It was part of your plan. A little push here, a confusion there, so everyone would see me fragile, to justify the nursing home. You said it yourself in that call." The technician appeared from the hallway. "Mrs. Parker, the system is ready. Do you want me to explain how it works?" "Yes, please." During the next few minutes, while the technician showed me the controls of the new alarm, Valerie and Ryan stood in silence. I saw how she tried to approach him, how he rejected her. I saw how the marriage that had lasted 3 years crumbled before my eyes, and I did not feel satisfaction. I felt sadness because that was my son losing his marriage. But it was a marriage, rotten from the root. When the technician finished and left, I took out the documents Maurice had prepared. "These papers are a legal ultimatum," I explained to them calmly. "You have 48 hours to vacate this property. You can take only what you brought when you moved in. Clothes, personal objects, nothing more. The renovations you made stay here because you made them without my permission on my property." "Are you kicking us out?" Ryan asked, and he sounded like a small child. "Yes." "Mom, please." "Valerie can take her clothes and her things," I continued without letting myself soften. "But the jewelry she stole, each and every piece, stays here, and she will pay me the $75,000 she obtained selling them, in monthly payments if necessary. If not, there is a criminal complaint for aggravated theft." Valerie let out a guttural sound like a wounded animal. "And this," I said, taking out the last document, "is my new will signed and certified this morning. If something happens to me, if I have a mysterious accident, if suddenly I become confused and need a nursing home, this house does not go to you. It goes to the Foundation for Elderly Women." I saw Valerie turn pale. "Ryan only inherits the property upstate that his father bought years ago. $50,000 more or less, enough to start over, but not a square foot of this house, not a dime of my investments, nothing." "Mom, that is not fair," Ryan protested. "I am your only son." "Fair." I repeated, and the word tasted bitter. Is it fair that you pushed me to the floor on Christmas? Is it fair that you planned to lock me in a home? Is it fair that you stole my jewelry and sold my heritage? Is it fair that you chose this woman over your own mother? Ryan did not answer. He just cried. A mother's love is unconditional. I continued and felt tears burning my eyes. But respect is earned, and you lost my respect. You have 48 hours. If by December 30th at 6 in the afternoon you have not left, I call the police and file formal charges. Mr. Stevens put his hand on my shoulder. Emily, do you want me to stay? No, Mr. Stevens. I already did what I had to do. That night, I slept in my house alone in my room with the door with the new lock. And for the first time in 8 months, I slept peacefully because I had recovered something more valuable than money. I had recovered my voice. The following 48 hours were the longest of my life. Not because I doubted my decision, but because it meant watching my son pack his life and walk out that door not knowing when he would return. The morning of December 29th dawned cloudy. Typical weather for this time of year. That damp cold that gets into your bones. I went down at 7 and found Ryan in the kitchen making coffee. He had deep circles under his eyes, his clothes wrinkled. He had fallen asleep on the living room sofa. Good morning, I told him, because manners do not disappear even if the heart is broken. Mom, he started, but I raised my hand. The deadline is still running. Tomorrow at 6 in the afternoon. I know, can we talk? I poured myself coffee. The smell of cinnamon comforted me. Harry always put a cinnamon stick in the coffee. I had continued that tradition. You have 5 minutes, I said, sitting at the table where I had eaten breakfast for 40 years. Ryan sat across from me. He seemed to have aged 10 years in 2 days. Mom, I made mistakes. Many mistakes. I didn't defend you when I should have. I let Valerie disrespect you. I considered things I never should have considered. I drank my coffee in silence, waiting. But I am still your son, he continued, and his voice broke. I am still the boy you raised, the one you took care of when he had pneumonia at 6 years old, the one you defended when everyone said he wouldn't amount to anything. I know, I said, and the words hurt coming out. That is why it hurts so much. Then give me another chance. Let me fix it. I drank my coffee slowly. I remembered all the times that same boy had asked me for another chance. When he broke my mother's vase playing inside the house, when he got bad grades, when he crashed his father's car, and I had always given him that chance. But this was different. This was not a broken vase or a bad grade. This was betrayal. Where were you when your wife pushed me to the floor? I asked, looking him in the eyes. Ryan lowered his gaze. There, at the table. And what did you do? Silence. Nothing. I answered for him. Not only did you do nothing, you told me not to be dramatic, as if lying on the floor at 68 years old was drama. I know, Mom. I know, and I regret it. Do you regret it because you understand it, or because I caught you? That question left him speechless. Valerie appeared in the kitchen at that moment. She had her hair up in a ponytail, no makeup, and sweatpants. It surprised me to see her like that. Vulnerable. Real. Emily, she said, and I noticed she didn't call me Mom or use any fake nickname. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to talk about with you. Please, just 5 minutes. I looked at Ryan. He nodded. I will go pack, he said, getting up and leaving us alone. Valerie sat in the chair Ryan had left. She put her hands on the table, clasped. I saw she wasn't wearing rings, not even her wedding band. I am not going to ask for forgiveness. She started, and her honesty surprised me. Because I know you wouldn't accept it, and I probably don't deserve it. You don't deserve it, I confirmed, but I want you to know something. I grew up with nothing. My family lived in a trailer park, 5 siblings in 2 rooms. My dad abandoned us when I was 8. My mom worked cleaning houses like this. I said nothing. I was not going to let myself be manipulated with sad stories. When I met Ryan and saw this house, she continued, I saw everything I never had: stability, heritage, future. And I became obsessed. I thought if I got this, I would never have to worry again. I would never be that poor girl from the trailer park again. And you decided to take it from me, I said, without compassion. Yes. Did I decide it? Because in my head, you had already lived your life. You had a husband who loved you, a son, a house. I just wanted my turn. I stared at her. I saw a woman broken by her own ambition, someone who had confused having things with being someone. Valerie, I also came from poverty, I told her. My father was a bricklayer. My mother sold tamales. I grew up watching them fight for every dollar. Harry and I built everything from zero. We lived in a construction site for 3 years. We ate beans and tortillas for months. We worked until we bled. She looked at me with attention. The difference between you and me, I continued, is that I never thought about taking what was theirs from anyone to have mine. I worked. I suffered, I sacrificed, but I never stole. I never manipulated. I never betrayed. I know, whispered Valerie, and that is why I lost. She got up from the table. Before leaving, she turned around. For what it's worth, Ryan does love you. He is just weak. I made him weak. No, I corrected her. He chose to be weak. No one does something to you that you don't allow. Valerie nodded and went up the stairs. The rest of the day passed in heavy silence. I listened to them moving upstairs, opening and closing drawers, dragging suitcases, arguing in low voices. Susan arrived at 3 p.m. She brought food knowing I wouldn't have cooked. Chicken and rice beans, fresh bread. How are you? She asked me while heating the food. I don't know, I admitted. I feel like I got my house back but lost my son. You didn't lose him. He lost himself. We ate in silence in the kitchen, the same place where I had cried so many nights, the same place where Harry hugged me after difficult days, the same place where I fed my baby 35 years ago. At 5 p.m. on December 30th, Ryan and Valerie came down with their suitcases. They had 3 large suitcases, each 2 boxes of books, some bags with personal items. Nothing more. I watched them fit everything into Ryan's car parked outside. No one spoke. The neighbors watched from their windows. Mister. Stevens came out to his yard vigilant, ensuring they didn't take anything that didn't belong to them. At 5:45, everything was loaded. Ryan entered one last time. He stood in the middle of the living room, looking around as if he wanted to memorize every detail. Mom, he said, and his voice trembled. Is there really no way to fix this? I felt something break inside me, but I stayed firm. Yes, there is, but it is not immediate. You need to learn who you are without her. You need to remember where you come from. And you need to understand that respect is not begged for, it is earned. And if I achieve it, if I divorce, if I change, if I prove I can be better, then come look for me. But not as the son who wants his inheritance, as the son who wants his mother. Ryan approached me. He tried to hug me. I went rigid. I didn't reject him, but I didn't reciprocate either. I love you, Mom, he whispered against my shoulder. And I love you, I replied. But loving does not mean allowing. He separated from me. He had tears rolling down his cheeks. He left the house without looking back. Valerie did not enter. She just got in the car, staring straight ahead, rigid, defeated. I watched the car drive away down the street. I watched it turn the corner and disappear. Susan hugged me from behind. You did the right thing, she told me. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you are a mother, and a mother's love hurts even when you do what is necessary. That night, alone in my silent house, I walked through every room. I touched the walls Harry had painted. I sat in the armchair where he watched football. I smelled his shirts that I still kept in the closet. I did it, my love. I whispered to his photograph. I got them out. I defended our house. But I feel so empty. And there in the house that was now completely mine again, I understood something fundamental. Reclaiming your space is only the first step. Rebuilding your life is what comes next. 3 months later. It is Thursday afternoon and Mr. Stevens will arrive in half an hour for our weekly coffee. I like Thursdays. They have become my favorite day of the week. I put on old jazz records, make a pot of coffee with lots of cinnamon, take out the pecan cookies I baked yesterday. The house smells different now. It smells like me, like fresh paint flowers from the garden, fresh bread. It no longer smells of tension or lies. I painted the living room a month ago, mint green, the color I always wanted but Harry said was too bold. When you are a widow, you can paint it whatever color you want, he joked. I never thought I would have to do it, my love. But you were right. The mint green looks beautiful. Harry's photos are back in their place, on the mantel on the bookshelf next to the window, our wedding photo in the center of the living room. They don't make me sad anymore. They keep me company. They remind me where I come from and why I fought. The lace curtains I embroidered by hand return to their place. The linen tablecloth we used at Christmas is washed and stored for next year. My sewing room is my sewing room again. I already started making dresses for the neighborhood children like before. Susan comes every Wednesday. We drink tea in the garden and talk about everything and nothing. She was my rock when everything was crumbling. Now she is my company when everything is at peace. The jewelry. That was the hardest part. With help from Susan and Mr. Stevens, we tracked down 14 buyers of the pieces Valerie sold. Some returned them when they knew the story. Others sold them back to me. I had to pay $17,000 to recover what was mine. It hurts, but I have them back. The garnet necklace is on my neck right now. I wear it every Thursday. It is my way of honoring the mother-in-law who received me with love. The turquoise bracelet is on my wrist. My grandmother would be proud of how I defended it. Valerie never paid me the rest. She disappeared 2 weeks after they left the house. She left Ryan when she found out about the new will. If there is no inheritance, there is no marriage, she told him, according to what he told me later. She went with a businessman from Texas she met on Instagram. Someone with real money this time. I did not file criminal charges. Mr. Stevens told me I could, that I had all the proof, but I decided to let it go. Not for her, for me. Because carrying hate is carrying dead weight. Ryan, my son. That is the most complicated subject. He writes to me every week, long messages asking for forgiveness, telling me he is in therapy, that he divorced Valerie, that he got a new job, that he understood what he did, that he wants to come back. I answer him. I cannot not answer. He is my son, but my messages are short, cordial, distant. I am glad you are well, Ryan. I hope therapy helps you. Keep moving forward. 2 weeks ago, he appeared at my door, without warning, with flowers, yellow roses, my favorites. He looked thinner, more gray hair, older. "Mom," he said, "can I come in?" I let him in. We sat in the mint green living room. We drank coffee. We talked. He told me everything. How Valerie manipulated him from the beginning. How she paid off the credit cards he used for the failed business with threats of leaving him. How she made him feel he would never be enough without money. How she convinced him that I was the obstacle between them and happiness. But that does not excuse me, he said with tears in his eyes. I made the decisions. I failed you. I allowed them to humiliate you in your own house. I did not hug him. I still can't. What do you want, Ryan? I asked him. I want to be your son again, not the one who waits for inheritance, the one who takes care of you because you are my mom. Then prove it. With time, with actions, not with words. He left with that answer. He comes back every Sunday. He drinks coffee with me. We don't talk about the house or the money or the past. We talk about how the garden is, about the news, about the weather. It is a start, small, fragile, but it is something. This morning, while watering the bougainvilleas that Harry planted 30 years ago, I caught myself singing. I didn't remember the last time I had sung. My hip doesn't hurt as much anymore. The wrinkles are still there, but now I see them differently. They are maps of battles won. I am 68 years old. I live alone in a 3-story house in the suburbs. I have almost $200,000 in investments that no one else can touch. I have a house worth $800,000 that is completely mine. I have a sister who visits me every week and a neighbor who drinks coffee with me every Thursday. And I have something more important. I have my dignity back because I learned something in these months. I learned that love is not enough if it does not come accompanied by respect. That family is not who shares your blood, but who honors your value. That forgiving does not mean forgetting, and that setting boundaries does not make you a bad person. I learned that at 68, you can start over, that it is never too late to defend yourself, that the voice you thought lost was only asleep. The doorbell rings. It is Mr. Stevens with his worn leather briefcase and his grandfatherly smile. "Emily, is the coffee ready?" he asks from the entrance. "Ready, Mr. Stevens, with cinnamon just how you like it." We sit in the mint green living room. He tells me gossip from the neighborhood. I tell him about the dresses I am sewing. We laugh, we drink coffee, we eat cookies, and I realize something. This is happiness. Not soap opera happiness with perfect endings. Real happiness. The kind that is built day by day, decision by decision, boundary by boundary. I look at my wedding photo with Harry on the mantle. We look so young there, so full of dreams. And we achieved those dreams, my love. We built this house. We raised our son. We lived 42 years of love. And now I continue. Alone, but not empty. Free, but not lost. With scars, but also with strength. Because true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. And they don't take anything from me anymore. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching from. I would love to know that these words reached you. Like if you believe dignity has no age, and subscribe to keep listening to life stories like this. Because we all deserve to remember that it is never too late to recover our voice. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with your family? Tell me in the comments, your story also deserves to be heard. The end.